So happy to be back this week. Trying this one again. If you missed it last week, I was doing it on my son's nap and he woke up, and so Mama Duty called, and so I was off to do that. But excited to get to share this with y'all again. And also, I feel like that was just such an important one in terms of being like, yeah, it's fine if that happens. It's no big deal. Yay! Hey, Kristen. Hey, Shantae. Okay, good. I found it. Okay. Yeah, part two, exactly. So this is part two. Michelle was joking that I was like April Fools. It's not going to happen again. But no, we're doing it. It's happening. But yeah, I ended up having like the best day ever last time. So, I think it just is one of those things where like shit happens and just what you make of it. We like had so much fun together, hung out with him all afternoon. It was great. You just gotta roll with the punches, and we're here doing it again, and it's no big deal. But obviously, like, it doesn't always feel great to be like, oh, I'm not showing up for the thing I said I was going to show up for. But I think it's just like so cool to be like, we could have worked out better. Yeah, such good evidence. Exactly. So this week we're talking about 5 things my most successful clients have in common. $100 gift card giveaway. We did it last week. If you showed up for like 3 of those minutes or whatever, but we're going to do it again this week too. Shannon said part 1 was a great lesson, actually, real life. Yes, exactly. Real life. I think just like really trying to lean into that is like, we can still show up and just show the realness, and it's fine. Hey, Michelle. Okay. So I started to preface this last week, but I want to say it again really quickly is that, I sort of hate the framing in some sense of like 5 things my most successful clients all have in common, but obviously like one, that's like the smart way to say it, market it, and two, it is true. It is like the point of this conversation, but the caveat that I wanted to make is ultimately that's not like a standard that you have to hold yourself to. Like so many of my clients come to me because they haven't nailed one of these things and they want help with that. And they are still just as great of a client and worthy and good and all the things, even with that context. And so this isn't like to pedestal anyone or anything, but this is just to say that these are traits that, I think matter. I was on a podcast recently and she said, success leaves clues. Tell us what the clues you see are. And so this is how I'm seeing that, right? Is like, these are just things we can all endeavor to work on. This isn't like a pedestal to put people or like any one client on. And that doesn't mean a client isn't a good client if they're not doing one of these things. In fact, like that's why they would hire you. So just important to say all that. Kristen said all the mamas feel that for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, I think I talked about this in stories a little bit, but it was such a good lesson for me because it would have been much easier for me to just cancel it from like that control freak version of myself. But I'm like so glad that I didn't, even though it was like 5 minutes, like just to be like, it's fine, I don't need to. And if I need to cancel it midway, it's okay. Like that was actually like an important lesson for me because normally it would have been easier to just be like, cancel it. I can control what I can control. I'll get ahead of it and just be like, no, I could just be messy in it. Whatever happens, happens. It was so good for me. So anyway, let's get into it. Oh, and I think I already said this, but we'll do that $100 gift card giveaway. So any comment at all, you're entered to win just as a thank you for being here and being part of our redo. Okay, so the first thing I said is they're willing to say what they believe. I'm just reading it. They're willing to say what they believe, even if it's unpopular, and back themselves in it. And so what I meant by that is I feel like it's a bit of a practical thing and it's a bit of a mindset thing. So I think that the mindset front is you feel so convicted in what you're doing that you're less worried about criticism, feedback, negativity, because you feel so sure about the thing you believe in. And I think that's so important. And it's like what makes you not lose your shit. I did a whole live stream on this when I talked about that reel I had about paying for our nanny student loans that went viral. And how I got so much crazy feedback around like, what if you stopped having a nanny and actually took care of your own kid and stuff like that. But what was so helpful for me about that is I feel so sure about how I'm showing up as a mom and the decisions I've made and why we have support and all of that kind of stuff, that it was really easy to let that roll off my back for the most part. And it didn't like stop me from continuing to show up. And I feel like when we're trying to share a message that we're not like fully connected to or fully embodied in or really, really back ourselves in, that there's always like this part of us that's hesitating to show up, that's like a little scared we're going to be found out, that's like holding back in so many ways, that's not truly open. And I think our audience can read that energetically. I don't think they're like, oh, Lacey's lying or something like that, but I think that there's just a way where it doesn't fully connect, you know? And I think there's also a way where it makes us hold ourselves back. Like we're a little less likely to make that post or to keep going, or if like one comment can just absolutely spiral us and, throw us completely off of our game. And so when I see clients that are like really going for it, really having success, like one of the biggest things is they're just saying the shit that they believe in. And from a practical perspective, obviously polarization works in marketing and it also works in a saturated market. Like if you're just saying the same thing everyone else is saying in the way they're saying it and expecting to have success, it's going to be harder, Um, and I really think that that's like what's required right now. It's not to be polarizing for the sake of being polarizing, but to share enough that it's obvious why you stand out. And I think you have to back yourself in that. And you have to be kind of like grounded in yourself enough in that. Happy Easter, Tudra. Thank you. You too. Happy Easter to Lacey and the Lit Up Babes. I love that. Thank you. I hope you guys had a beautiful Easter if you celebrate. Um, but yeah, I think you have to really like find that in yourself. Like I was having a conversation with a client about this morning, and she's kind of like having a little bit of trouble showing up and posting in this moment. And I was saying to her, like, you have to start embodying what you want to say more. Like you saying shit that you think you're supposed to say or that you said a few years ago or whatever isn't going to help you unless you're feeling really embodied in that. Right. That's what's going to translate. That's what lands with an audience. So whatever is like your thing at the moment, if you're willing to share that, say that, back yourself in that, like that is when shit is going to take off. Um, and again, from a practical perspective, like if you look at like what content is like popping, it's that it elicits emotion, it creates a response. It's you're either really for it or you're really against it. And the point is not that you should go try to like find those things to make polarizing content. The point is you should find that within yourself. Like what is your thing that you want to say that you're holding back on saying? Or what is your thing like where you're like, oh, all I do is say what I think other people are wanting to hear from me. That's why my business isn't growing in the way I want it to. Yeah, such a good point. Thank you, Shantae. Hey, Lisa, it's so good to see you. Happy for you to be here. Hey, Deborah, happy Easter Monday to you. But yeah, I think that's just such a big deal. And it's one that we undervalue, I think, so much. And it's one that like I think I've talked about this before, but there's this book that I really love. It's called Letting Go. And one thing he talks about in it that I really, really try to practice and live by is live as though everyone can read your mind, but assume you can't read theirs, which is like a whole thing that I could do a whole live stream on that. We don't need to get into all of it today. But if you really think about it from this perspective, like this is why that works. So it's like, show up online like they can read your fucking mind anyway. Like they can feel your energy. They can read when like you're really not fully saying the thing or when you're holding back or when you're being half yourself or when you're trying to say what someone else is saying. Like they can feel that. Um, and you can't read their minds. Like you're not going to be able to read the mind of every person that consumes your content. And if they liked it or if they had a reaction to it or if they didn't or whatever, it doesn't matter. Just show up like they can read your mind. And that's so freeing, right? Because that is really when it starts to work. And I think so few people can do that really well. And I think that that's why it's one of the biggest markers of success because so few people in this space actually do that, actually show up in that way, actually say the thing. So I think it's just such an undervalued skill set in many ways. And I really, really think that it is everything in terms of really being able to, what I'm about is not only create success, but sustain it. Like when I think about what I want to live up life to do and what I want to help our clients with, that's what I think of as success. That's not only scalable, but sustainable. And the sustainable is this: say what's on your fucking mind, say your thing, own your piece, back yourself. Like that is sustainability, you know? Hey Tina, happy Easter Monday. Oh, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you. Deidre said my grandpa, who's a journalist, used to say, live like everything you don't do today will be on the front page of the paper tomorrow. Oh, I love that. That's a lot to process, but it's so good. It's so true. Shante said, need to sit with that, maybe to the degree of where I'm doing this versus where I'm not. Yeah, totally. I'm always trying to like pull that out of clients on calls. Like if they say something and I'm like, where have you said that? Where are you saying that? You know, where can I go read that from you in content? And they're like, oh, I'm like, right. That's the stuff, you know? So, you know, there's always varying degrees of this, but just being willing to like go there, I think is so, so important. Okay, so the next one, we can also bounce around. Like if you guys have a question that comes up on that one that I just said later, let me know. But the next one is they think long term and not just about what they're going to make this month. So listen, this one's obviously easier said than done. I get it. But so many decisions in business are not about what it does for you this month. They're about what it does for you this year, right? That leads to success. I'll just use my own example right now. I'm going through a team transition, as you guys know. Actually, Megan is going to come on with me next week for a kind of like our last live together. So it's going to be so special. I would love for you guys to join us. I'm both looking so forward to it and probably going to cry. So I'm so pumped, but would love to have you here. But so we're going through this team transition right now. And I have my new team member on, plus I've kept Megan on for quite a long period of time, in the sense that I wanted it to be such a smooth transition and for everyone to feel super easeful and supported and all of these things, right? Well, from like a month to month perspective, that is not smart for me. Like in terms of like, if I'm thinking about what I'm going to make this month, double pay for like two teams basically is not it. But if I think about my business long term and what I want to happen this year and what we need, then that is such a blip in time that of course I'm going to make that decision. Of course I'm going to double pay for a team for multiple months, right? Because that's what gets us where we want to go long term. That's what makes the business better. So this is just one example, but the point I want to make there is that those two often feel in conflict with each other, is that what I make this month versus what I make long term. And like they usually don't line up, unfortunately. But so often when you take that big picture stance is when you have the success that makes up for the month that wasn't good, or the 3 months that weren't as good, or your profit wasn't as high, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like I know that these months mean nothing in the grand scheme of like what we're doing. What means something is that I feel supported, my team feels supported, my clients feel supported. Like that's what really means something. And so I think so many people miss out on that perspective because they're so focused on the short term, right? Yes, we are doing one last live, Elisa. It's going to be really special. I'm looking forward to it. Ginger said, how do you handle long-term thinking when you have a baby? Mine just turned 1 and I have the feeling I have to change my work routines and goals every few months, depending on baby's mood and development stage. Ah, I get that so much. I mean, so many thoughts there. I think for me, that is long-term thinking still, I guess is how I would say that, because long-term, I imagine your goal is a healthy, attached, you know, well-adjusted child. And so even though it feels like you're making short-term pivots to accommodate that, which of course you are, especially in the first year, I think that is still very long-term goal oriented. I definitely, you know, my son's turning 2 on Friday, so I get it. Also, I will say you're 1 to 2 was much easier in terms of how many pivots we had to make. So you're getting close to, that not feeling as intense. But I think that the point I would make there is it feels to me very much in what you're saying as a mom, you're serving your long-term goals, even if you're making short-term changes. Kind of like I was saying with team. Short-term, I'm making a lot of changes. We're like letting this team member go, we're hiring this team member, we're doing these things. But long-term, I want that to steady out and be balanced. You know what I mean? So I think that that's helpful perspective too, where sometimes you do have to make short-term moves for the long-term goal. And I think that is what you do as a mama in so many ways. Michelle said, I love that you had that overlap for them because it's an investment in that long term. It's so invaluable to have that both onboarding support. Yes. Oh my gosh, it's been everything. Hi, Crystal. Good to see you. Shantae said, yeah, totally makes sense. I think my curious question around that is how do you tie the overall mission how do you tie it to the overall mission of the business? Thank you, teacher. I'm so glad. Hey, Lucy. Okay, how do you tie it to the long-term overall mission of the business? Sorry, Shantae, I'm just pressed. Sometimes I'm like, my brain takes a second. Yeah, so I mean, listen, I think like obviously you have to know your goal. Like if the mission of the business is to whatever, like I'll share for a little life. The mission of our business is to support our clients to have businesses that they can not only scale but sustain and to do that for a long period of time. And I want to be in business for a very long period of time, right? So if I think about that, it's easier for me to make like short-term adaptations or changes or short-term periods of discomfort because I'm like sustainability for clients, for myself, right? So I want my clients to feel like they can really be happy and supported during this transition. Easy. We make the choice to overlap. I want to be in business for a really, really long time. I want sustainability. Okay, fine. I'm willing for my profit margin to go down for a little while as long as, we're moving toward the goal of like a great team long term. Does that make sense? I don't know if that was as specific as you wanted it to be, so feel free to like ask me more there. But I do think that it's like really kind of quite big picture of like, what is this aligned to? Obviously, the business needs to make money. But for me, it's not like how much money do we make even this year, honestly. It's like how well positioned are we to make money for years to come? Oh, happy early birthday. I know it's so crazy, Michelle. I can't believe we're gonna have 2-year-olds. It's so wild for me to process that. Elisa said, truly easier said than done. I've always felt so pressure to make the sales that now, for the first time in 5 years, I let myself focus on audience growth instead of feeling like I need to sell ASAP without the right people being there, if that makes sense. Yes, that totally makes sense. Oh, good. I'm glad that was helpful, Shante. That was exactly it. So the value would be sustainability and profitability. So making decisions aligned with that makes total sense. Yeah. So again, short-term profitability might go down, but long-term that helps it go up. I don't know if you guys know like the Clifton Strengths Finders, but one of my top strengths is futuristic. So I'm like a very futuristic, like in the future thinker. So I'm able to, I think quite easily, but definitely is something I help my clients with, see like, oh, it's not about this month, like I said, or even this year, it's about can a Lit Up Life be in business for the next 5 or 10 years, like I think even that conversation comes up with like me focusing on reels a lot. Recently, so many people were like, why are you putting so much energy into that? Like you have over 600 people on your wait list. You can get a client anytime you want. Like, who cares? And I'm like, because I care what happens to a Lit Up Life 3 years from now. Like if I could ride that 600 person wave for a while, but I really, really care that we're in business really long term and not just short term. So it's not like how much money can Lacey make off reels this month. It's like, what does that set us up for years because I'm willing to up my marketing, try new things, focus, adapt, grow, that kind of thing. So maybe that's another way to look at it too. You have changed my mindset so much on this. Oh, thank you, Jess. Oh, that's your top one. I love that. That actually makes total sense. Shantae said, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. I'm a dirt on the ground person. So hearing that is super helpful frame. Yay. Okay, good. Okay, so next one is they see themselves as the CEO and don't outsource their power to me or anyone else. So I think this one is so important. I feel like so often in our space, people really outsource a lot of their power to their coach or a specific strategy, right? I was actually just talking with one of my clients. We started working together in February, I think. Whenever we took on new clients at the beginning of the year, end of Jan, early Feb. And what we were really kind of discovering is that in her business, what she has sort of always done as a pattern is outsource her power to a thing or a strategy or a system. Like, oh, okay, I'm doing this system and I really believe it's going to work. And then it works for a period of time until it shows some kind of like fault in the system where it's not like, bulletproof. And then she totally loses faith in it, totally freaks out, and restarts with another system. So it's like she's having these like peaks where she gets really good results. And then it feels like shit falls apart. And then she has a peak where she gets really amazing results, rides it for a little bit, shit falls apart. And it's like, that's the pattern, is she's always outsourcing her power to this like perfect system or framework. And they all work because she's working them and showing up for them and has belief in them. But as soon as they seem even a little imperfect, which all system strategies, frameworks are, she'll totally lose faith in it. And so then she loses it from the mindset perspective, but also from the execution perspective, because if you don't believe in it, you're not showing up for it, and then has to start over again. And so what we've really been working on is how does she kind of like, return power to herself, which sounds so, I don't know, like too fluffy in some ways, but it's like, we could work on a whole new system, fine, but the same thing would happen. I don't want that to happen for her with me long term, right? I don't want her to be like, yeah, it was so great. I started working with Lacey. I got really amazing results. And then X dot, 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 right? Like I want her to be like, I worked with Lacey and I actually didn't get the results I thought I was going to get right away. But wow, now I know how to sustain them in my business for the next 10 years. Like that's what I want. That's what she wants too, right? It's not just about what I want, it's about what she wants. But like that's what we both want. And it looks like not just going, oh yeah, here's another magic system. Go put all your faith in it, go work it, and like it won't ever fail you. It's too much pressure. And I think we do that with coaches too. So her tendency has been more with like a system or a strategy, but I think a lot of people do that with coaches. Like they hire a coach and they're like, you're my end all be all, you're going to save everything for me. And then they do until they don't, until they realize there's something imperfect about that coach, until that coach falls from the pedestal a bit, until they have like the shitty launch or the hard season, then everything kind of gets rocked. And so when I really see people creating a lot of success and maintaining it, it's almost always because they do not believe in like one thing or one system. They really believe in themselves and their ability to pivot and to figure it out. And I feel like that is like, that's where like all success comes from. I did a reel today that I'm like very proud of, you guys. It doesn't seem like it took a lot, but I had to like put a little line on it and figure things out. Anyway, give me some love on it. It took me a second, but the reel was all about self-trust. It was basically about how, the lesson of my life so far has really been about trusting myself over everyone and everything else. And, it doesn't mean we don't have a village or support or trust in other people, but it means we don't put that above ourselves always. And I think that that's huge, is where so many people are coming into this industry and going, I can't trust myself. So who or what else can I trust? Oh, this system, this coach, this strategy. And that will get you success. And that's what's scary about it. Like I was saying about that client, she's actually had a lot of success. She has a multiple six-figure business. Like it got her success because her belief and her strategy and her execution were fucking on point during that time. She fully believed in that strategy. She had a good strategy and she fully executed it until not, right? And so what's hard about that is like it does seem like the ticket to success sometimes because it will give you short-term success. Um, Shantae said it's like the difference between, oh shoot, it just disappeared, Shantae. The difference between something and then I lost it. Jeter said some people outsource a lot of power into manifestation rituals. Oh my gosh, 100% do. Shannon said, yes, outsourcing. I mean, so much to say about this. You have to lean into your own self, which is scary, hard, and failure is inevitable. Yeah, totally. And not only do you have to trust yourself, you have to trust yourself even when you fail, which is really hard too. Trusting yourself over everything is so powerful. Yes. Michelle said that will get you success, and that's what's scary about it. Oof, what a time to live in. What a time to be alive, Michelle. Shantae's was, it's like the difference between one-time implementation versus compound interest over time. Yes. Um, it reminds me so much of that. What's that study? I think it was a Wells Fargo one, but I could be totally fucking this up. But it was basically like they looked at like 401k accounts and investment accounts and who their most successful investors were, and they were all dead. Like their most successful investment accounts were for people who were dead because they didn't touch their shit, right? They just let it compound over time. It wasn't about timing the market. It wasn't about the right strategy. It was like they just let it compound over time. And so I think that's totally what you're saying here. It's like, that's the thing, is like we're always trying to hack it. My husband is always reminds me that when we're talking about money or investing, like we're buying this house, I was like, is it the right time to buy this house? Is it da, 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 da? And Kenny's philosophy is always like, it's never timing the market, it's time in the market. It's never timing the market, it's time in the market. So we're going to be in this house for the next 30 years. Who the fuck cares? We're not playing the timing the market game. And I'm always so grateful to him for reminding me of that, because it really changes my perspective. And I think that's kind of so similar here to what we're talking about. It's not like that one strategy or that one thing. It's like, can you keep it up? You know what I mean? That's coming up for me as success does not always equal satisfaction, and satisfaction is the thing for me. Ooh, yeah, Michelle, so good. Would love to know from your experience what you've seen support people in stopping to put other coaches or systems on a pedestal. Ooh, okay, we can definitely talk about that. All time. Kenny and Presley would get along so well. They totally would, Jess. I feel like we need to make that happen. Right. And keeping it up in this context of self-trust, because that's something we can always tap back into. Yeah. I think in terms of Lacey, your question about what I've seen support people in stopping that, I think is just seeing how much of a pattern it is for them. Like that client I was talking about, like until she had that like aha of like, oh, this is my fucking pattern. It's not because it works, it's because it's my pattern, is when I really see her starting to make a shift. And I think same is true with other clients I've helped with that. It's like they almost have to not like see it as like, yeah, but I'm like one more system away from the right thing. They have to see it as like, oh my God, like I'm in the fucking matrix and this is my pattern and I have to step out of it. It reminds me of like diet culture a lot, where like you're always like the next diet, the next diet, the next diet. And then as soon as you're like, oh my God, I'm in the matrix, these don't actually fucking work. I have to step out of it and have an entirely new way of thinking about this. Like that's when things really shift. So I think that's really the most supportive, is being able to like see it as a pattern that you can kind of identify. And then I also think see the industrial like kind of push behind it too. Like, why does that work? Because the diet industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Why does that work in the coaching industry? Because that's how people keep you buying from them, is they keep selling you a system or a pedestal or a system or a program that you can put on a pedestal. So I think once you can see like the industry mechanism too, it's a little bit easier to step outside of it as well. Because you're like, oh, I see my own pattern here. Plus, I see that like this only benefits the industry. The more I think there's an answer that is perfect, the better off I will be. Like, that's when I think you can really create that perspective of like, oh, I have to step back from this. So not outsourcing your power, again, being able to get support, but I think getting support is so different than feeling like your answers are in someone else. And, I think that that's where the magic happens. Okay, so the next one is they can have a thought or a feeling and still take a different action. Love this one. Something I always say, which I feel like is funny coming from me since I'm like such a feelings person. Sabrina tells me that I'm a psychotic feelings person because I'm a Scorpio moon. I don't know if that's true or she's just trolling me, but this is what she tells me. Yeah, Shantae, exactly. Getting support is so different than feeling like your answers are in someone. Oh, I said that. I thought you were saying that. I'm like, yes, exactly. Sorry. Thank you. Nope. Stabs is right. Oh, bummer. Okay. Well, I thought maybe she was just trolling me. But anyway, she says I'm like a psychotic feelings person because I'm a Scorpio moon. So this one's going to be funny coming from me, but your feelings make a shitty CEO is something I constantly think about. Like your feelings cannot run your business. You can feel them. They are important. They fucking matter. You should process them. You should be familiar with them. All of it. Just don't let them run your business, you know? Again, one of those things that's easier said than done. But so what I meant by this statement is they can have a thought or a feeling or still take a different action, is they can have a feeling and still not act on that feeling. So like they could have a feeling of like, I want to fucking burn this down because I am so whatever stressed today, but they won't take action on that. Or they can have a thought of like, I fucking suck, but they don't build their business to defend against that, right? So it's like this really powerful place of like, I am able to have feelings, I am able to have thoughts, and they don't run my business. And I'm not constantly taking action from that place. I feel like the vast majority of entrepreneurs are constantly, I mean, constantly taking action from, I either want to feel more of this feeling or I never want to feel this feeling again. Right? So I either want to feel more of this feeling. So like, let's just use that as an example. Like, oh, I had this one sales call that was so amazing and it was so easy to close them. I only want to have sales calls like that ever again. And if I ever have one where I have to speak to objections, it would be terrible or wrong. Conversely, right? I had a sales call and I felt really bad on it. And I'm like really embarrassed of how I showed up. And I have to make sure I never, ever, ever, ever have a sales call like that again. Right? I'm gonna read your comments. Hey, Lisa, good to see you. Yes, you're feeling like a shitty CEO. Yes. Shantae said, this is my favorite concept because it's just so true. Didn't you say our feelings make us bad CEOs or something along those lines? Yes, Shantae, so good. Thank you for remembering that. Elisa says, I have a thought a lot about the line recently between not running your business from your feelings, yet also not being afraid to pivot when something truly doesn't feel aligned anymore. Totally. So for me, feelings are like, I think Elizabeth Gilbert maybe said this about feelings, and I find it to be so useful, which is like feelings are like clothes, like you take them on and off, right? One day I feel kind of bad, the next day I feel kind of good. Like my feelings are constantly changing because I'm an evolving human, which I think is truly different to my gut is telling me over and over that this doesn't work for me, and that never falters and that never changes. Like that feels quite different to me. So at the feeling level of like, today I feel 13 different feelings over the course of the day or whatever, versus ongoingly, this thing in my business is always feeling out of alignment and my gut never wavers on that. I think that that's important and different, but I totally agree with you. Such a fine line. Um, but I think that we're often making business decisions from quite temporary feelings. And that's sort of the same thing of like success isn't temporary. Success isn't about temporarily trying to up a feeling or change a feeling. Like it's about like that long-term sustainability. So long-term, it would not be sustainable if, constantly in your business, you're unaligned. Like my example here that I'll use is, when I, excuse me, was like, had launched a few group programs, I wasn't like, oh my God, this makes me uncomfortable. I hate this. Like, right. I did it multiple times. And every time I did it, I was like, this isn't super charged for me, but it just feels not right in my system every time I go to do it. I feel completely unaligned over and over again. And that never shifts. That always feels the same. Even when I feel happy on a group call, I still do not feel like, gut whatever for me. My human design is definitely gut related, but like I do not feel in my gut that this is right. So I think those are different. Like I can still have a good feeling about it while knowing it's not best for me long term. So I think that that differentiation always helps me. Um, Michelle said not making decisions from height of our feelings, good or bad, is the ultimate lesson of someone with an emotional authority can confirm from personal experience. Love that. Tina says this resonates so much, such a small distinction, but makes all the difference to be aware. So good. So like don't make a long-term solution based on a temporary fleeting feeling. Exactly. Shantae perfectly said. Like, I think that's it, where it's like, right, well, like again, I think something a lot of people do is like something happens with a client or something that makes them uncomfortable, like whatever. I can think of the perfect one. People do this all the time, it drives me fucking bananas. They'll have a client default on a payment plan or something. And that makes them feel a lot of things, whatever that is, not worthy, pissed, angry, used, like all these bad feelings. And then they'll go, I'm only taking painfuls from now on. I'm never dealing with that again. I'm never going to feel that again. I'm only doing painfuls forever and ever. And it's like, ugh, right? Like strategically, that is not useful to your business. Strategically, like that does not really help you. What you need to be able to do is deal with the discomfort of having that shitty situation happen and even knowing that it might happen again, right? So I think that's a good thing where that's just like an example of this, right? It's like I can have the thought or feeling of like, fuck this, I only want to take, I'm never taking a payment plan again. And I can still be like, that probably doesn't serve me fully long-term shift, right? Shantae said, I love hearing from emotional authorities because I'm splenic. Oh, makes sense. Um, oh my gosh, 100% the non-payment plan isn't solving the real problem. Great example. Michelle said the corporate version of that is creating a new policy every time one person does something they don't like. Oh my God, it's so true, right? And it's like, or that was just like a one-time thing. It's no big deal. I did a story on this last week actually too, because I was talking about how in base camp, I had a client where 2 to-dos just did not show up for her. Still haven't been able to figure it out, but I've been on Basecamp for like 7 years. This feels like a very isolated incident. It's not a big deal in terms of like, I could have been like, I'm so uncomfortable that I missed 2 client deadlines that like, I'm getting off Basecamp. We're never using it again. I need to redo my whole project management system, on and on and on. It's like, that is not true. I may have wanted to say that in the moment because I wanted to make sure I never had to feel that again, but ultimately like that doesn't make sense for us, right? Um, my splenic husband does not always have the patience for my emotional authority, to be fair, and I don't either. Too funny. Okay, last one is they truly and deeply believe in their work and what they're selling. Excuse me, I know this one sounds obvious, but I feel like so often what people do when they come into being an entrepreneur into this space specifically is they go, what are other people offering or selling? And how do I offer or sell something like that? Not inherently bad, right? But I think that so often people are sometimes out there marketing and selling something that they really do not fully believe in or do not feel truly aligned to. And it makes it so fucking hard to sell. And it's basically like being back in corporate, really. Like if you think about it, like go sell, whatever printers for a corporate company and be a salesperson then, because it's something that you're not super connected to, that you don't feel fully aligned to, that doesn't feel like the thing you care about and believe in and would like die on a hill for. And for me, like with one-on-one, that's the thing I would die on a hill for. Or how do you say that? That's the hill I'll die on. Yeah, that's the hill I'll die on. And so it's really fucking easy to sell it. It's really easy to help people get bought into that. But like if I was doing something totally not that, because that's what people do or whatever, I imagine I would have a significant challenge in terms of overcoming that or selling that. I just would, because it's not the thing I most believe in that I can most back. And so I think when we have that, it's interesting how easy it is to create success. I recently did an intensive for someone, with someone, sorry. And they have an amazing business. They have a huge, huge, huge Instagram following. Like, I don't even know at this point, maybe like 400K or something. They have created so much success, so much reach, so much impact. Like, I really can't say enough good things. And she said to me on our intensive, she was like, I have never really been strategic with my business and I need to start. And that's why I'm on this intensive. And my takeaway from that I think is so, so, so important is she just believed in her thing enough. And she does. She is like the walking, talking, living embodiment of what she shares about. And she believes in it so deeply and so fully. You can feel that in every single thing she does, in everything she posts, in everything. she shares. And so this isn't kind of some like cheesy feel good tip. It's like, this is what creates growth. This is what creates virality. This is what creates community, is you believe in your thing so goddamn much that like, even if you didn't use a ton of strategy, it kind of wouldn't matter because like it's landing with people, right? And I really think like if that's exactly what I've experienced in my business is like, I just believe in deep one-on-one work so much. That's why I have a big waiting list. I don't even have like that big of an email list or that big of an Instagram following or anything comparatively to the size of my wait list. But the reason I have that is because I could talk about that all day. I believe in that so much. I will back that 100%. Like it's so simple for me to get on board with that and talk about that. And so I just think that that's such an undervalued part of business sometimes is it's like, yes, we want to be strategic about like, what's a good message? What's going to make you money? All of those kind of things. But if that's not the foundation of it, it's really, really hard. But like that client I was telling you about, if that's the foundation of it, of like, this massive belief, right? You can get away without even being all that strategic because that catches on for you. I mean, she's run an amazing business, but you get what I'm saying. Like it really does propel you in a way that nothing else will. And I think you can really feel that in someone's content, kind of back to that first point of like, you know, uh, treat it as though everyone can read your mind. Like you really can feel that. And I think especially again in a market where, part of what is so fun, I think, about reels and content creation right now is there's like trends and there's things to capitalize on and all of that. But I also think part of it is like not a lot of people are really making their own mark and standing out in such a significant way. Michelle, who is that girl that we love on Instagram? I can't even remember now. I know you'll remember. Last something, right? Anyway, the point is, there's this girl on Instagram that Michelle and I love who does these amazingly hysterical satire videos that are just 10 out of 10 on like cooking and stuff. Like she'll be like, look at me picking like fresh strawberries to make my child whatever, like strawberry Pop Tarts or something. And she'll like jokingly like put a strawberry in the dirt and then pull it out. Like it's so funny. But Michelle was sending me something and she was like, oh my God, there's like a million accounts like hers now, like that are doing kind of like same vibe, same satire, but nobody does it like her. Like the way she does it comparatively is just like it's just nobody does it like her. The girl with the chicken that doesn't lay eggs, exactly. And so it's like cool because you can be like, oh, that's working for her. I should go do that. But it's never gonna work quite as well. So yes, use inspiration, but you have to put your own spin on it. And I just think that's so the thing. And I think you have to have that, to really stand out right now because the market is too saturated to just like say the same thing or to sell the same thing. Again, I think that worked for a period of time. She just has that level of commitment. It's like Bluey's dad. He goes all in. That could be a whole other live stream. I have not watched Bluey. So I could not deliver that live stream, but I've heard amazing things about Bluey. But yeah, it's like a level of commitment to a craft, to a thing, to a belief. Like I just think it's so important. What is her? I can't remember her name now. Let me look so I can tell you guys because she's so fucking funny. It's hold on, Michelle's probably knows this. Oh, okay, it's Lex dot De La Rosa. So funny. This also feels so much better when it's really yours. Yeah, Asha, it's so funny because it's back to the self-trust thing a little bit, right? Where it's like, I think for some people, it actually feels safer when it's someone else's, when they're like, oh, someone else already did this, so I know it's going to work. But it doesn't actually feel better. It just like tricks our brains into that. It's like, oh, this is safer, right? Versus like, oh my God, this feels like I'm putting my soul work out into the world. Like it's so different. It's so important. So basically use all of the parts of the framework, mindset, strategy, and execution, and we're golden. Done. There you go. That's the whole live stream. Shantae just summed it right on up. Yes, totally. But yeah. So I think these are important because so many of points on all of these are it's like about who you're being. It's not about what you're doing, right? It's not about like, oh, my clients use one strategy or they have one specific funnel or they have one type of offer suite or they don't at all in any way, shape, or form, but they have these in common, right? They're saying what they believe. They're thinking long term. They're seeing themselves as CEO. They're not outsourcing power. They're having that thought or feeling and still taking a different action. They're in belief in their work. Like all of these components are like what creates success that's inevitable. I don't know how long it'll take. I don't know what it's going to take, but I know that it's inevitable when you put all of these together. And I think when you're missing these, it's like success on a shaky foundation, right? It's like success, but success asterisks, success asterisks. It doesn't actually feel that good, or success, but might not last. Like, you know what I mean? Success and doesn't feel how it's supposed to feel. So these are my things. Um, Shannon said using someone else's material pitch can be a form of protection. Yes, but it's not sustainable. Totally agree with that. Yeah. Such a good reminder. So landing going into the week. Thank you. Yay, Shantae. Hey, Bobby too. Thank you. Okay, so that's what I have today. So I hope that was helpful. I'm so glad we got to redo it. I'm so glad that y'all came to chat with me today. Like I said, next week it's going to be Megan and I together. So apologies in advance, I guess. Megan was like, "Are you gonna cry the whole time?" I'm like, no, I'm not yet. No, but it'll be so good. We're gonna just be really honest about like some of the transition, what's been going on, how we've done it. I think it'll be really helpful to dive into all that. I know a lot of you have been asking me about what that's looking like behind the scenes right now. So we're gonna go in depth into all of that. So I would love to see you there. Scorpio moon, exactly. I'm gonna cry the whole live stream. That's my Scorpio moon. I'll warn everyone first. Shantae, hi, welcome to this live stream. I'm a Scorpio moon. But yeah, it'll be good. So I would love to see y'all there. And yeah, thank you guys for hanging with me today. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.